So here we go at long last. I'm back to this painting. I can't believe how long it's been. Um, you may notice over there on the right hand side, well, my left, I don't know what side that is. I've always had trouble with right and left, and this whole video back and forth thing just makes it that much more confusing for me. But anyway, this is the final stage. I'm going to be taking this painting all the way to finish with you. I almost got it finished. I should say that this is Art of Cycling, and I'm Greig. I wanted to get this painting done prior to the start of the Tour de France. Plus, I've got an exhibition coming up in just 2 weeks, so I wanted to make sure I had one more painting for that show, although the gallery space is smaller than where I currently have an exhibition up. Well, it closes today. It closes about now, in fact. Up in Newcastle at the Hoyt, but it's going to come back to Richmond and be at the Richmond, Virginia, that is, at the Black Irish Social Club. So I finally, and part of the delay on this was a couple of things. One, I had to stop the painting and build the frames for that exhibition, and we had sent a picture of this painting to the gallery space, the museum space, and said, is this male frontal nudity that I'm no correlation there, the fact that I'm picking pieces off of the oil stick. Were they going to be okay with this male frontal nudity? And they actually said, no, we can't do that. We're a teaching facility. We have children in here all the time. And I was completely respectful. It was my wife, Bridget, who suggested that I ask, and they were appreciative that I asked. So I partially took the wind out of the sails on this painting. I still really like it. I hope you do. So I kind of set it aside, built the frames, and then life got complicated. I've done a fair amount of cycling art, but this was actually the first time I picked up the oil stick since January, which is rather unusual for me. I'm usually in here once, twice, 3, 4, 5 times a week. But lots been going on. And I was waiting to find the solution to this painting, this particular part, these rocks. And I initially filmed and the camera failed. So I had sort of resolved on this, well, it's a combination of vermilion, dioxazine purple, and white. Excuse me, as the stone color. Because I couldn't really use a warm tone as though it was sandstone, because that would blend into the figures. Simultaneously, I couldn't use a gray-blue tone as though it were granite, which I think is what the stone actually is, because that would be almost indistinguishable from the water. So I've been hemming and hawing, and it was like today it suddenly went, wait a minute, this is the solution, we'll do this. And I played around. First it was going to be just a vermilion, and that didn't look very stone-like. So I came back in, and of course you can't see the area, but the first section I did was down where that paper bag is. You'll be able to see it in a moment. See there, the paper bag? And it's slowly gotten more and more purple. And of course, I wanted to show that the rocks had mass, so we're sort of working on the shadow section of the rock. So the side, and then you can see these sort of stepping downs of the boy, that was hard to say, surface area of the stone to, and we'll have that be more light catching. And of course you can see that lovely nasty rag that I have there is, I constantly keep a rag, multiple reasons, but primarily if I pick up the wrong color on the end of the oil stick, it's the way I keep the colors from polluting. It's like, oh, I picked up too much blue. If I drag my yellow into that, it's going to get green. And, so you have to be cognizant of that. Now, this one's a little unusual in that, except for what I'm working on now, the stone, the entire painting is dry. I mean, like 5 months dry, maybe 4. And see, also what happens is the oil sticks, and I hope you will choose to use these, you will find that, particularly with the Shiva, they, just as it dries on the surface, that outer skin congeals. I had a student once tell me. They don't dry. And so that makes a hard skin, which is what the surface of the painting becomes. But that skin impedes the flow of the pigment onto the paper. There's a little sawdust and cobweb. That's what I'm blowing at and now finally picking off. Because this painting hung on the wall while I built all the frames, and so there's a lot of sawdust, as you can see on my paint table. Someday I hope to at least get my painting storage separated into another studio. When I built the studio, and I do mean I built the studio, it's 600 feet with 12-foot ceilings. So I thought, there's no way. This place is huge. And of course now it's teeny. And I'm finding that I have to build a place to store paintings. So I'm going to go out what was once upon a time a garage door and put in some painting storage. Working on figuring out A, how to afford that, and B, exactly how to approach it. So when the camera wasn't working, I drew this hand, and I don't like the way it looks. So I'm now taking a razor blade, like a utility knife box, that blade, scraping off the paint so that I can get this warm tone of her thumb. Sorry, I'm realizing I just did have a collector of mine who just delights in the fact that a figure has 2 left hands. And Bridget here might have 2 left hands again. It was funny, he was just doing my hair, although you can't tell it by the way it looks right now. Other than it's probably shorter than the last video. How that's a tell on AI, where the finger count is wrong, or the thumb's in the wrong place, or in the case of my paintings. And as I was doing this, I had intended to leave that diagonal line of the bag with nothing of it sitting on. But I think having that one more chunk of purple set against that yellow-orange just helps ground that corner of the painting. I always love the irregular edge, but that one, the bag still pops through the picture plane. And as a reminder, this was going to be the last of this exhibition. I will probably continue this idea. The last of the series of my artwork hung on the compositional ideas of some famous paintings.
It is.
I think I walked back here to make sure it was. That was me going, is this recording before I get too far? So this, and I had a long, I've always found Déjeuner sur la Grasse a bizarro painting. The Degas is two fully clothed men sitting with a nude woman as they have déjeuner, have their lunch in a park. And in the background is a pond with another nude woman in the pond. And the painting's been spoofed, mimicked for so many, well, literally centuries now. 150 years, almost. That it was hard to find a handle that wasn't just another spoofing. And then I also wanted to reverse the roles or the genders. So that's how this is actually an experience where we were, and I know I've talked about it in the earlier videos, hanging out on the rocks after the morning after a party the night before, back in college days, when Wolfgang showed up butt naked. And Bean, the girl with the sunglasses, was not amused. And when I get to the title, I'll tell you what she said to Wolfgang, because the initial reaction is what I ended up using as the title. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Obviously, I've already finished the painting and already titled it. But you'll see that process as we get along. So, of course, now it's the slightly boring viewing of watching me go back through and now put these lighter surfaces like I did on the rock you were just watching while I was talking about other things. So I'm laying in purple, and then just a touch of the alizarin crimson, and then coming back in with the white. I don't know what that little check was. And see, that was the other thing with picking the color with the rocks, is I had to make sure that he didn't blend in too much, and simultaneously her hand, which is sort of the gesture, it's the gesture that informs the title of the painting. So I had to make sure that didn't disappear either. So that's why I struggled so long to figure out the color of the rocks. There were so many pieces to balance. It's also why I knew I was in trouble with that and put in this green and white striped blanket that Bridget and I are sitting on, the younger me, back when my hairline was lower and my hair was darker. So right there, I'd use the rag again to wipe off, because as you apply the paint stick to the paper, it builds up the detritus of, it builds up a crumbly edge or slurpy edge, just depending. And that makes the marker wider, and then also, because there's so much dimension in the other work, you can end up getting pigment where you don't want it. So I'd stop to wipe off the edge of the marker. And of course, I'm concentrating on this painting while I'm painting it. I'm clearly doing a voiceover afterwards, after the painting. So I'm not like, oh, I should show you what I'm doing here in regards to that, but alas. And of course, I love to work large. So, which, is a problem when it comes to the finding homes for the paintings. Because most people don't have this big of an empty wall. And if they do, they probably don't want to put anything on it. So, yeah. But I have always worked on the premise and felt that while I want to sell work and I want to make a living, I always make the paintings I want to make, follow that path, the inspiration, the ideas, whatever it is that motivates me to do a particular work, and then figure out how to find a market for it. You have to do it that way because, one, there's no telling what people want. And so you have to I make paintings for myself. And in fact, this painting is a perfect example. I really wanted to do this painting. I wanted to do this subject, and then when I remembered the story from my past, it seemed perfect. But, I ended up not being able to show it in a museum. My wife isn't really happy with the painting. Again, not the painting part, but the subject matter part. And I just love it. I think the whole thing's a hoot. But even though I was there with them, it's very different being a young woman, I am sure, when a new man walks up, than being a man. And, it's hard to imagine what might have happened. It's not hard to imagine, unfortunately. What might have happened had I not been there, or had it been 3 women. But Bean and Bridget both are not ones to take any stuff. So they probably would have been fine. What a word for Wolfgang. But what a weird thing to do to anybody on the river. It's not like we were at the nude beach or anything. Because I believe nowadays there is an area where people do go nude across the river from where we were. But let me remind you, we're in the center of a city that this river, it's actually the only city, I believe, in the world that has Class 5 rapids going right through it. Richmond, I think, is 400,000 people in the city and another 600 to 800,000 in the surrounding counties and burbs. So, this isn't a desolate area we're talking about. And now more than then, there's lots of kayakers out on these rapids. And of course, there's lots of cyclists riding the trails, mountain bikers. So, of course, would love to know if you have any questions about this piece, things I haven't hit. And what you might think of this whole story. I'd love to know your comments on it. I'd also love to know what I'm going to do next in the big painting format. I noticed there was a lot of sawdust in my beard there. The painting of my beard. There may be sawdust in my beard too, for all I know. So I'm taking a hard look at this and trying to decide. There's one thing that's bothered me since day one, and that's that navel. So I have decided to take it out. You know, as you notice, the hands don't have fingernails, so why is there a belly button? So of course I'm over trying to get the white clean because now I have to blend these colors. And as I said, the figure, except for what I'm now working on, is very dry. So there's going to be no easy blend. So I'm trying to get that to mix into the already dried surface. And one technique is to, use your finger to stretch it out. So see, I'm trying to clean off my pinky, but I didn't succeed. So I'm trying to blend that in, and I realized that my glove has got too much color on it. So I'm adding a little bit of yellow to the white, going back and forth, and going, you know what? One way to not have paint on my glove is to not have a glove. So I've ripped the glove off, go back in and add a little bit more white and yellow to this, and now make sure my finger's clean, and take my finger and blend that in so that it softens the edge, because otherwise there's no transition into what was already painted and what I just painted. And I think it worked. Now, of course, I want to step back and look at things. Having done that, it's time to title it. And here's the first thing that Bean said, which of course you can't see because of my big fat head. And of course, to sign this, I'm going to, but there you can see it. Oh, God, no. She was just like, just no, no, no. Unfortunately, Wolfgang got the message and went, oh, okay, I'll leave. So I had to move the chair out of the way so I can swing my elbow. But apparently that didn't work, and I made a slight mistake with my signature, so bloop. People are going to look at that in art history, hopefully, and go, is this really his? The signature doesn't look right. So that's Oh God No. Thought I'd come in, let you see close up so to get an idea of what the oil sticks look like, what the painting looks like while I'm working on it. I'm usually actually a little closer than this. Excuse me. So, of course, I hope you like what you see. You'll leave a comment, subscribe. I'm hoping I'll get 1 or 2 paintings done before the start of the tour, but I hope you'll stop back and watch the tour as well. And, of course, head over to my website, greigleach.com. Thank you all.